to the new guests arriving. Welcome to you all. We are about to start very soon. We're just waiting for a few more guests and we'll start the webinar in a few minutes. So just bear with us a bit more. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are about to start now. Again, welcome to the All Africa Students Union webinar. As some of you might already know, the All Africa Students Union is the umbrella organization for all students of Africa. It was founded in 1952, and ever since the union has established itself across 54 countries in Africa, making the union the largest student movement in Africa. Under the current leadership of Mr. Peter Kwasi Koje, the Secretary General of the Union, the All-African Student Union has followed 7 strategic priorities. The first one being the one of education and students' rights, capacity building, gender advocacy, environment and climate action, Pan-Africanism and African culture, followed by migration and mobility, and democracy and good governance. For this week's topic, the Union has decided to delve into an exceptionally complex yet exciting theme of Africa in world politics. Indeed, Africa's influence and competitiveness have not been felt enough in the global political space since the end of colonialism. Nonetheless, the formation of the African Union gave the continent a voice on the international front. But despite its formation, the continent still suffers from neo-colonial ties, under the form of, for instance, foreign corporate behaviors, Western donor aid, new donors with emphasis on China, EU-Africa trade and development ties, and last but not least, foreign political influence and military interventions, especially in the Sahel, from countries like France. Without a doubt, neocolonialism has been one of the major challenges of the continent, given that it has greatly affected the unity of the continent. Additionally, issues of war, terrorism, and the struggle for a new world economic order have been some of the constraints imposed on the African continent. As such, this webinar will be an opportunity for us to explore the various measures which this generation, younger people, in other words, can adopt to make Africa truly competitive on the international stage at a time of great uncertainty. This will include, of course, measures which can be put in place to improve the continent's weak economic conditions. And some of the questions to be answered in this webinar will include first, how can African countries collaborate to project their voice on international policies at global institutions such as the United Nations? Second, how the continent can combat terrorism, which keeps harming economic development of affected country, especially in the Sahel, and also how can Africa's socio-economic steps be rigorously reprogrammed to make the continent more self-reliant? And most importantly, again, how can this generation can do things differently to make the continent truly competitive on the international stage? In order to discuss those very fascinating questions, we have with us an outstanding panel of men and women who've done exceptional things around the world. And with them, we have specific objectives to explore one of them being to explore what is currently being done by African leaders to make Africa competitive on the international stage, identify diverse challenges that are associated with the current activities and policies that are affecting the continent at this time, and again, what can be done differently. First, we have with us Mr. Siaka Nyawaya Mikel, the Commissioner of Youth and Pan African Movement, Rwanda Chapter Rwanda. We also have Madame Karima Ranem from Morocco, who is the President of the International Center for Diplomacy and CEO of Africa, MIO. We also have Mr. Varney Jersey, the Vice President of the All Africa Students Union, West Africa. And we have also Dr. Samuel Salia, Senior Lecturer in Accounting and Finance at De Montfort University, UK, and Peter Josepha Niboye, the President of the Tanzanian Higher Learning Institutions Students Organization. And finally, we actually have a guest who just joined us. My apologies for the noise. It is Miss Rwanda 2020 Nishmiwe Naomi. So now I'll let our keynote speaker, Mikel, give us the keynote address for the webinar. Over to you, Michael. Michael, can you hear us? I think you need to unmute your mic. Yes, I think your mic is muted. So as soon as you unmute it, we'll hear you.
Okay, I can hear you
Great.
now. Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Karina. Can you hear me?
We can hear you perfectly.
Can you hear?
Yes,
Okay.
we can hear you. Over to you.
Thank you so much. Dear comrades, colleagues, distinguished speakers, and all participants, greeting from Kigali, Rwanda, in Pan-African Movement Rwandan Chapter. Let me start by thanking you all for choosing to be a part of this great discussion and for having accepted to give a part of your precious time to attend this historical session as we discuss on the way forward for our lovely continent. Africa, let me also thank the organizers for giving me this opportunity of being one of the speakers and the guest speaker, the great topic selected, Africa in world politics, where we will be interrogating ourselves on what can this generation do differently to make Africa truly competitive on the international stage. This topic is a reflection of understanding that African youth matters, and it is a demonstration that we are youth have the potential to move from being massive and active participants. This represents a bright future for Africa because if the youth, which is the largest population in Africa with over 225 million young people, that's a great opportunity and a huge opportunity for the population that we have as young people. If we can connect and take advantage of not only our population size, but also energy. Young people have energy, have potential, life, innovation, creativity, and mix with it, we can achieve a lot as Africans. We can work closely as Africans if we have that unity. The question of what can do to make Africa truly competitive, on the international stage is therefore a question that concerns making ourselves. They use Africans relevant, and I believe African has got a potential to elevate our standards. However, it will have to start with our own mindset. Mindset for the young people is very important, very important. If we know that we are taking this continent to another level, we have to change our mindset in a positive way. So, African has got the potential to elevate our standards. However, it will have to start with our mindset, as I mentioned, before we become active, vocal, and competitive. We need to define our interest as the Africans in order for us to have the same voice. We need critically ask ourselves, whose view and interests do we possess? And it is answering that question can take some concrete steps moving our continent on the international stage. This truly is the most fair resources of Africa, is the unity of Africa, people, and if we can achieve unity and share the vision, a lot other things can fall as such. Unity is very important for the young people. If young people for the African continent, we bring together our strengths and the unit, we build a strong unit, we believe that we can take this continent to another level. I'll talk about some few points leveraging on the opportunity of being the most resourceful continent. Our natural resources would start benefiting first and foremost African people. Young people, we have to protect our resources. We have to know that we have resources. We have people, we have gold, we have timber, we have a lot of things. The only thing that we need, young people, we need to be ready for that and we protect that. Exploiting opportunities in the African continental free trade areas to increase movement of goods and services and people of Africa, people-to-people connection. We young people, we need to connect each other from Morocco, from Ghana, from Nigeria, from South Africa, different countries, for the Africa, so that we can build a strong network. Of course, it will also help us to exploiting opportunities. This will help movement of goods, services, people in Africa, people the connection. Purchasing power of Africans, which turn would be contributing to our respective countries' economic growth and development. Increasing intra-Africa tourism. Tourism is very important. When you look to the country like Dubai, when you look at a country like Qatar, when you look at a country like Singapore, these are the countries that just grow in the few, maybe in few years, but they started from zero. We believe in Africa, if we increase tourism, culture. I've been in India for 7 years, but these people, the culture is very important. When you look to China, people, they are very strong to their culture. African, we need to stand on our culture. We need to exchange the cultures and the hospitality, which would be increased connection between African people, because we need to see the appreciate positive development taking place in different countries on the continent, contributing to the peace building and conflicts resolution, because without peace and good governance, nothing will be achieved. We need to silencing the guns in Africa, as the AU mentioned this. If we have peace, security, governance, strong leadership, strong institutions, this will really help us to take this continent to another level and do differently as young people. Investing and sensitizing competence based in education. Young people, we need to equip in terms of education. We need to be equipped, so that we can compete to the international stage. I can testify that competence based on education is the real key to skills appreciation in the real life situation. Let us have schools where curriculum contains real life scenarios, You find these people, we are Napoleon, we are the, we go to the European histories than going on our African history, which is really teach us a lot. But we are very interested for the, a lot of history, which is really, but also is good to learn that history, but it's good to learn for our history, and we stand for our culture. So project-based learning, if the education system was structured in a way that facilitates students to easily transition from schools to real life situation, a lot could be achieved. Harnessing digital skills, we are going technology, we need to promote digital skills. We need to take advantage of access information, communication technology, ICT, and sciences effective catch-up innovation and creativity. Young people, we need to be very creativity so that we can go to the international stage when we are equipped. Strengthening the youth entrepreneurship, building knowledge economy. I can go on, and all these buzzwords that we'll find in most all African countries' documents, and where it is a problem, question mark. Allow me to share some experiences from Rwanda. Rwanda is celebrating 26 years this month. We started from 4th, celebrating 26 years of liberation. In 1994, our country was torn apart of the genocide against the Tutsi, which took more than 1 million lives. You can imagine intellectuals, talented, gifts people, and other people of the value Rwanda lost, and Africa as well. Under the leadership of the President, His Excellency Paul Kagame, Rwanda has made a giant positive steps in most all key areas, and this provides a layer of hope that where there is a good leadership, leaders who care about their citizens, that the bright future of Africa is possible to the nation a few. I did not mention this to see, it's like if really Rwanda can make this, over 1 million people died in 1994, the genocide against Tutsi. But because of the good leadership, Africa, we need to have a strong institution and a stronger leadership and the presidents which are true Pan-Africans that will help the young people to compete to the international stage. We have in universal health coverage, somewhere every Rwandan can afford to medical care. That's one experience that I want to share with you, my comrades. We are now on the second in terms of ease of doing business after Mauritius in Africa. In terms of ICT and innovation, we have broadband connectivity, whereby over 90% of Rwandan is connected with access of 4G internet everywhere. I think you can hear me well now on webinar. The government have invested on internet, which is very good. But I also believe for you guys also, it's very, very good in that side. There is education in all, whereby we have 12 basic education free of charge. The government has set up the innovation hubs like a knowledge laboratory, Care Lab, which has a great product that brings change of everyday lives of Rwandese population. Gender balance, whereby 60% of the women are in the parliament, 65% of the women are in the parliament. We are also doing more on that. In terms of rule and the law, the government has managed to bring traditional justice where genocide perpetrators has tried through Gacaca Court, which indeed ended in 2012. There is improved infrastructure, name it, the list is long, and it is not pretend that everything is perfect in Rwanda. I was sharing just some experiences, but I'm mentioning all this to show that if Rwanda can do it after the genocide against the Tutsi, what about other countries of Africa? What about our continent? And we are celebrating 26 years ago. Rwanda has named 26 years ago, Rwanda has named as a failed state. But now we are coming up and we have got opportunity to share the experiences with you, comrades here. What is therefore the way forward? Our founding father has a pride in our own culture, believes our own way of solving our dispute, our own way of making life. Let us reflect on who we are as we speak. Pan-African movement structures been established in Rwanda. But if we want to go to international stage, we need to establish Pan-African movement on our respective countries to the grassroots. Because Pan-African movement before in 1900, it was for the elites, intellectuals. But we need to have Pan-African movement to the local people so that even the local people on the grassroots can understand and know what is the meaning of Pan-African. What are my laws? So that will really help us to structure and establish in our home countries. Let us get involved because together we can achieve more. We all admire Dubai, we admire Qatar, we admire Singapore, we admire we admire also our African countries which have already started doing this. To mention but few, for their good infrastructures and so on. Let us start building our continent because those things we admire were built by nationals. For those countries, we all know that action are much better than words. Putting our differences aside and stick on one common goal, which will open opportunities to growth. I conclude, I send my token appreciation to the organizers and all participants on this particular. Allow me also to express my special thanks to our Pan-African movement patron, His Excellency Paul Kagame, the President of the Republic of Rwanda, and our chairperson, Honorable Musoni Porote, the chairman of Pan-African Movement, for allowing me to represent my country and the Pan-African Movement Rwandan chapter in general, and the youth of Pan-African Movement in general, to share our experiences and aspiration of the betterment of our country, continent. Ladies and gentlemen, comrades, panelists, Africa is on our hand. We need to build on the discipline as young people. We need to build on the mindset. We need to set up culture. We need to know that Africa is already in our hand. I would love to wish you all a nice discussion and a webinar meeting today. And I trust and I believe that I'm going to learn a lot from you. This is a great opportunity for the young people. This is a great opportunity for the Africa. This is a great opportunity for Rwanda. This is a great opportunity that young people of Africa, let's stand and transform our continent and transform our nations and transform the economy of the country and transform the economy of Africa. I love you all. I wish you all the best. We are together.
Thank you so much, Michael, for this keynote address. As one of our guests would say, it's up to us, the youth, to design our destiny. So thank you very much. I'd like now to let our other panelists to introduce themselves. We'll start with Mrs. Karima Vranem, broadcasting from Rabat. Thank you.
Hello? Do you hear me well?
We can hear you well. Thank you.
Okay.
Over to you.
Good morning, everyone. It's a privilege and honor to speak to you today, and I'm always happy to take part in All Africa Students Union very insightful webinars. So I'm really happy to talk to you about this subject. And I think the question of this webinar is quite interesting. What can this generation do differently? But let me talk a little bit about briefly, as we're going to have other slots for discussion about Africa's position in the world today, in world politics. And I would say, first of all, we cannot talk about Africa's position in the world today without taking into consideration COVID-19 reality. Because COVID-19 reality has imposed a new strategic shift in the relationship between Africa and the rest of the world, because the international relations dynamic are changing actually today because of COVID-19. And as we have been following the dynamics of multilateral collaboration and cooperation across the world, as we've been experienced during this past 4 months of lockdown, many countries are now focusing more on its sovereignty, on its own interests and issues versus, investing more in multilateral, relationship. Though, today more than ever, solidarity and cooperation between multilateral organizations and countries are very, very important. And here, comes the role of multilateral organizations such as UN, AU, and other types of platforms. That's for one part. And the second part of the debate that we should ask ourselves is whether we're seeing Africa as a real strategic partner or still seeing Africa as a subject of international aid. So that would determine how we're positioning Africa in the world. Also, I think a geopolitical interest of many countries who are interested in Africa, more specifically traditional partners such as the EU, which is currently facing a lot of issues due to COVID-19, and other emerging powers such as China now, and Turkey, and Brazil, and other types of countries that are interested in Africa. And we've been seeing in the last few years a lot of competition between those countries over Africa's natural resources. We've been talking many years that Africa has a bigger percentage of the world's natural resources, but we're not really doing anything about it, in the sense that many other foreign powers are using our resources, but we're not unlocking the potential of our local countries to exploit these resources for the benefit of African people. Also, I think the political and economic landscapes in Africa has changed in the past few years. So we're not the same Africa that used to be seen as a victim. What I wanted to say here is commenting on Mr. Shaka's keynote speech. He mentioned the mindset. So I think we should look at it from 3 points. COVID-19 reality, the mindsets is important, and more specifically, how to make a balance between our Pan-African values, but at the same time being open to international cooperation. And the other part is the narrative. We have to change the narrative about Africa. 2 other points that I wanted to add to conclude, to leave a room for other discussions, is I think today, as Africa is shifting more towards South-South cooperation more than North-South cooperation. And we've been seeing during COVID-19 calls from the AU president to put a framework of cooperation. We've been seeing the call of His Majesty King Mohammed VI of Morocco to build a framework for COVID-19, solidarity and management. So there is a call now, and there is a room for more collaboration between African countries, whether at the political level and also at the economic level, reactivating the economic blocks that are existing to identify the impact. As to younger generation, I think this is quite an important question that you asked. And in my opinion, if we look at the demographics of Africa today, we have more than 60% of the African population, which is young. But if we look at the projections in the future, maybe in 20 years or 30 years, Africa will no longer be young. So I think if we're want to do something differently and have an impact, not just at the international scene, but building our home first to reflect on the international scene, is that we need to make a balance between building the infrastructure and building the people. So we need to invest more in the people, and because as you followed in during COVID-19, we've been seeing a lot of our people that are making a lot of achievements and progress during COVID-19, but contributing to foreign countries' progress and wealth. We need these people home. We need to unlock the potential of our youth to keep them home. I'm not going to say fight against brain drain, because that is against the right to mobility, but at least managing, the brain drains of our people. And the last point is we wanted to focus on four main things that needs to be part of a new ecosystem to make young people part of the decision-making process is innovation, entrepreneurship, taking into account digital transformation and artificial intelligence, education and research, global leadership and advocacy, but more specifically giving young people a voice in the decision-making process, being more effective in politics, and encouraging their civic engagement. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Karima. I'd like to move on now to the introductory remarks of Mr. Vaughn, New Jersey. And please, I'd like to remind our panelists that just, try to keep this introductory remark short so we can, keep track of the timing for this panel. Thank you very much. Over to you, Mr. Vaughn, New Jersey. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I want to extend thanks and appreciation to you, our moderator, and I want to say hi to all panelists. With the All Africa Students Union is the umbrella organization for all student groupings in Africa, and it is indeed a Pan-Africanist and revolutionary institution that have been fighting not only for the rights and dignity of African students and youth, but also have been fighting for the advancement, development, and the interests of the continent since 1972. So this topic is very much interesting. I know many young people, thousands of young people around the world are very interested in watching, and some are making inputs through comments. And it is a very unique topic that brings some understanding and ideas to sharpen the minds of young people and sharpen the mind of even some of our leaders as to how we can position ourselves currently on the international stage. So like you said, my name is Vaughn Aliou Jase. I'm the Vice President of the All Africa Students Union. I am the former President of the Liberia National Students Union. I was the former Vice President for International Affairs of the Liberia National Students Union. I was the former Secretary General, Speaker, and Vice President of the Student Leadership at my university, Stella Maris Polytechnic, and I'm the 2014 award winner of the Best Student Advocates on the continent of Africa. So this topic, we've been discussing it. These are topics, these are things we've been discussing on Facebook. We've been discussing on all international fora, from the United States to Europe, China, around Africa. So the topic itself speaks volume. It is also something sensitive that every one of us have interest in making contribution to. So as it relates to this discourse, what can our generation do differently to position ourselves on the international stage? We look at economic and empowerment. We look at security and military and security. We look at agriculture and food security. We look at education and human resource development. With these pillars, with these few pillars that I just mentioned, Africa as a continent, if we can address these pillars, if we can address these things, because you see most of the time when we discuss with young people, oh, we got poverty, human rights, things under development. These are all the symptoms. These are just symptoms. These are not the real problem. Until we can tackle the real problem, we will be facing most of these things. It's a very simple stuff, right? You say this person say they have malaria. This person say they have itch on their body, okay? But you go to the hospital and take treatment. But then you come back in the community, you still play in dirty water, you still play in dirty drainages, you still keep the drainage, you still keep the environment dirty, mosquitoes keep biting you, you're still going to have malaria, you're still going to have itch on your body. So the problem is keeping our environment clean, keeping our drainages unique, and stop playing in dirty drainages and stop being in dirty environments. So that's the problem. Malaria, itch your body, they are all just a symptom. Why am I saying yes? What I'm saying in relation to what we are talking here is to address poverty and to position ourselves on the international stage, we must take into consideration a few things. Like I said, with the economy and with economy empowerment, education and human resource development, military and security, and so forth, we must be able, the young generation of Africa, like you must are saying, is a fact that 60% of Africans are young people. All right. So if this is factor, it means that we must concentrate on the young population, and we must begin from consciousness building. Consciousness building in education should be the premise. The premise, and it should be one of the key tools of any advancement and position ourselves best on the continent. There's no way that the Europeans are going to respect you, the Americans will respect you, or the Chinese will respect you, or the Russians will respect you if they see thousands of Africans dying in the Mediterranean Sea every day just to cross and sleep in Europe. When I went to Paris, I was concentrating on a few things. When in the suburb of Paris, there were Africans sleeping in part of Paris. To see, they would rather not even go to join the corner, but they think that they sleep in they would prefer sleeping at that level. And it shocked me. I said, how can these people come to Paris and sleep in this kind of shackles and waiting to abandon Africa at all levels just to see greener pasture? And majority of them are young people. Look on the shores of the Mediterranean, when you see 2,000 bodies, dead bodies lying down. If it doesn't shock any young person to think better of Africa, then if it wouldn't shock you to think of yourself and abandon everything in Africa, then it means that we as young people are not willing to move Africa forward. And two, many of our young people have refused to go back to the historicity of Africa. How did we fight colonialism in Africa? Did colonialism just walk out of Africa, or did we have to fight to ensure that we liberate the entire continent of Africa? These are questions we must ask ourselves. And if it's a fact that Africans have to fight day and night, lose blood to move colonialism on Africa, especially down from the apartheid struggle, we must know who were those fighting for us, who were our friends and allies, who were helping us. We must know who were fighting against us then, who was arming and supporting our oppressor against us. Until African youth and African young people can answer this question, we will continue to be moved by Hollywood. We will continue to be moved by what we see in Hollywood, and our only information site to arm ourselves is what we see in Hollywood. Until we go beyond this, and be able to arm ourselves with the reference, a generation that does not understand the historical past of where they came from, they might bound to fail in the future. I know there are men who have still pins over the years for moving Africa forward. There are men who have suffered over the years. There are men who have been subjected to verification, insults, and calumnies. But in all forms, and most of the time, some of the African leaders have been even recruited as a puppet to the West, to the extent that they even go against their own country, they even go against their own people. The first speaker talked about Pan-Africanism, and what he said right there that we must do from our perspective is that we must be able to take Pan-Africanism to the grassroots. And sometimes in Africa, it's very difficult to stand in the form of Pan-Africanism.
Mr. Jersey, I think
Yes.
we are truly enjoying your statement. I think I completely agree with you. We have to take our narrative
Let me
back
conclude.
and our pride. I think you will have the opportunity to discuss that during the questions. We're just going to move on to the introductory remarks from Dr. Samuel Salia, and we'll come back to you to hear your very enlightening and insightful comments, if that's okay with
Okay,
you.
okay,
Thank you so much, Mr. Jawzi. Thank you so much. Dr.
okay.
Samuel Salia, over to you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I just want to take this opportunity to thank the All African Students Union for inviting me to participate in this idea sharing, and also thank my panelists for accepting to share the panel. On the issue of what I do, I am a teacher, but also an African, so I've often tried to focus my work on Africa. Is very close to my heart. Now, on the issue of what we can do to be competitive or to improve our competitiveness in the world, one thing I have to quickly mention here is this, that the world stage is for problem solvers. So at the entrance to the world stage, they would check your ticket and ask you, are you a problem solver? Now, the earlier, speakers, Karima did mention, and of course, Shaka also did mention, it's an issue of our mental setting. Of course, we have seen in a lot of cases that we look outside for them to come and solve our local problems. Africa as a whole have made some strides in trying to solve our local problems. And generally the cliche we tend to hear in this context is that we have to develop people that can create jobs rather than job seekers. And of course, it's a very important thing to look in that context. But the question you ask is, what is our understanding of an entrepreneur? And in most cases, when I go into a class and I ask students, some of my African brothers and sisters would tend to say, okay, when I finish, I want to have my own company. I want to start something for myself. I don't want to get employed. Then I ask, what do you want to do? Then some mostly people from Nigeria would say, I want to get into the oil business. Some would say, perhaps from Ghana, talk about gold, and Ivory Coast, they will talk about cocoa. Then I ask, what will you be doing there? Then they say, we want to be buying and selling. But the question is that an entrepreneur's role? We tend to see that an entrepreneur's opportunity is in one of striking an oil deal or perhaps striking a gold deal. But that is not the mentality that an entrepreneur should have. It should be a person of vision, and you should be a person that solves problems. Now, the question again to ask is, where do we have most of the problems in the world? It's Africa. So if Africa has most of the problem and the role of an entrepreneur is to solve problems, then I believe that is where there are most opportunities for entrepreneurs to pursue. And in most cases, you ask our young people when they come to the city, you ask them, why don't you go back to the rural area to bring some change? They say, no, there are a lot of problems there. And I say, problem is opportunity. That is how you discover opportunity. Now, in this context, I'm going to quickly make some suggestions so that we can move forward. Now, the first thing is this. We have to have a curriculum that is problem-solving oriented. How do we achieve this? Again, this is an opportunity I want to use to appeal to institutions like the African Union, that I have participated in curriculum development in institutions, and all we do is to sit on our decks and develop the curriculum. No, we have to go into the community. If it is a business course, we have to go and talk to businesses and try to identify their problems. Now, when we identify these problems as the curriculum developers, we have to see, how do we carve these problems into skills so that we train the young people to come up with these skills so that we provide society with these solutions. We shouldn't end it there. We should require the national supervisory institutions to ensure that anytime they are going to approve some of these courses, these institutions or these universities, technical institutions, they have to provide evidence that they've spoken to society and society has made input. So you have to show evidence that private sector input has been incorporated before the course can be approved. If it is about community development, if it is a course related to community development, you have to go into the community, get the community involved in the whole developmental process. And this has to be evidenced before the program can be approved. Now, the second thing I quickly want to mention is about setting up business incubators. And that goes down to local economic development. Now, there are some of the times the only way I can identify talent or discover talent is when I go on holidays and go back to my village. Perhaps I stumble on someone who has been able to come up with a very beautiful idea. But how do you participate in the world stage from that village? You need an opportunity. You need a place that is structured for you to go and exhibit your talent. Now, if we begin to charge the local authorities to set up business incubators, where we begin to harness and bring these talents within the rural areas to be displayed within these business incubators, then from there we can project it to the rest of the world. In that case, someone would sit in my village, like somewhere in Wellenbelle, and begin to participate in the world. So these are, as we go forward with the conversation, I would be touching on other points that we would will be looking to. So I want to leave it here as we go forward.
Thank you so much, Dr. Samuel Salia. It was really enlightening, and I'm sure we'll have the opportunity to discuss a bit more about your views as well. Last, I'd like to introduce you to Mr. Peter Josephat Nimboye. Over to you. Mr. Peter, can you hear us? I think you'll have to unmute your mic and we'll be able to hear you. Mr. Peter Nimboye, are you here? Okay. Oh, I think we're having an issue with sound. So we'll try to get back to you with questions throughout the conversation, Mr. Nimboye, and please feel free to let me know when things are getting better. But perhaps your mic is muted. Do you think you could unmute your mic? Okay. We're going to move on to our first set of questions. I truly apologize, Mr. Peter. I think we have to be careful of timing. So the first question is for Mrs. Karima Ranem. So we have seen that world leaders refer to Africa as a strategic partner in all sectors. In line with that, almost all countries outside the African continent have a partnership with one or more African countries. Tell us, what is for you Africa's place in world politics? How relevant are we? And just as important, what is the nature of Africa's diplomatic and international relations with the rest of the world? What is it indeed that we're doing right? And what is it that we're doing wrong? Over to you. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. That's a very valid question, and I'll try to put it also in the context of what can we do differently as well. If we're talking, as I said in my introductory remark, we have to position Africa in the current context, and more specifically within the framework of the emergence of new dynamics. And more specifically, the emerging countries that are interested, or let's say between quotes, competing for geopolitical interest in Africa. First of all, there is one important question before talking about diplomatic relations. Let's talk about whether Africa is considered as a strategic partner or as a subject of international aid. Because as we've seen throughout the years, many African countries who are not yet be able, regardless of all the reforms that have been done through in policy making in different countries, they're not being able to get out of the international aid assistance. Well, quite interesting is that in many countries today are thinking of developing their own models. Let me give an example. If we're now talking about the context of Ghana, for example, this is seen as an important foundation of a benchmark, let's say African benchmark. It's Ghana Beyond Aid model. Morocco is actually launching a nationwide dialogue between all different stakeholders to develop a new development model for the coming 40 years. It means that we need to look at ways to engage all different stakeholders, from political parties, civil society, decision makers, and all segments of society to voice their opinion about how we want our countries to look like in the future, and to what extent we are able to own our local solutions and participate actively in the decision-making process, from the making to the implementation to the evaluation, because participation is really key in determining our framework and also our way of doing business. Also, I think here, given the world map of international aid today with COVID-19, there are a lot of budget cuts within international assistance. So therefore, we need to think about how are we going to manage our own aid without per se depending on other countries' foreign assistance, by creating our own wealth, by using our own people. As I said, today, there's no excuse to keep focusing on just building infrastructure and not building the people, because the map of the future tells us us today, people are losing their jobs, small and medium enterprises and many enterprises are going bankrupt. There's a shift in different ecosystems in the future. So we need to think collectively about this. Second is the leadership. When we talk about Africa's leadership in the world, I think now with the building of different economic blocks and also different influential groups, Africa started having a say in international politics, whether at the level of the EU or at the level of the United Nations. Yet we're not there yet. Let me give you a quick example. For example, we have a T20 Africa Standing Group, which is like an African international think tank that supports cooperation between G20 and Africa. Yet we're not there. We don't have a voice in G20, although we have all the potential to get our leaders to influence the decision-making process. Here again, the decision-making, influencing the decision-making process relies on the younger generation. Today, more than ever, there is a growing interest in giving a seat in the table of negotiation to the younger generation to participate in global affairs. So, countries, member states of the AU need to take into consideration to develop more policies towards younger generation and empowering them in global leadership, in advocacy, so that they would participate effectively in advocating for African issues within multilateral organizations. This is something really really important. Also, another thing that is quite interesting to look at here is that African countries and the continent in general started working from a mindset of a win-win relationship, and that changes its diplomatic relationship within traditional allies such as the EU, but also determines its relationship with other emerging powers such as China and other countries. So I think what is important here is to review our way of doing business, to review our strategic partnership, more specifically geopolitical and economic partnership, do a kind of an evaluation of our current economic blocks for our, political economic relationship, especially now as the world is going into an economic crisis. So I think having a real evaluation and moving forward with the alternatives that would define our geopolitical interest vis-a-vis their geopolitical interest, and find out a way how to make a balance in a relationship, in a sense that it would be win-win, but not regarding Africa as a subject of aid or something else.
Thank you so much, Karima. I think I truly agree with you on the fact that we need to stop making Africa a subject of aid. It's a really fascinating topic to explore. So thank you so very much. Next, to move on, Mr. Shiaka Nyawaya Mikhail, I have a question for you regarding, Africa's youth. The continent indeed represents 1/5 of the world's youth population. Indeed, almost 60% of Africa's population in 2019 was under the age of 25, making Africa the world's youngest continent. So tell me how those numbers will influence Africa's prospect. What is being done by the current leaders in African countries to harness the potentials of youth to ensure a much needed socio-economic development across some African nation? Over to you, Mr. Shia.
Thank you so much, Colin.
We can hear you perfectly. Over to
good.
you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I think you see our government, or the African government, what they are doing for the young people, as you mentioned, that almost 25 years, the population is 60%, 60 and above percent. I just want to share some experiences which is really tangible, like what the government maybe are doing. Like an example here in Rwanda, you heard about what all the governments, the heads of states and the governments and the presidents came to Rwanda at Kigali Convention Center to sign African Continental Free Trade Area. This is, I believe, these people, most of the people who will sign this agreement, they are above 60s and 50s, 70s. This African Continental Free Trade Area, what they have already signed here in Rwanda, is going to benefit the young people. The only thing that we, the young people of the age of 25, we need to be very focused for the Agenda 2063. Agenda 2063, this is where the young people are going to be involved in decision making, in doing business, opening the borders. Now, I was asking myself, they have already signed the one passport for the Africa, but who is going to take in action the one passport to be already established, and every African can get that passport? The young people who still have the chance and the age to serve the continent, those are the people who are going to put this implementation in action. So what the government is really trying to do in Rwanda, the Rwanda are really empowering the young people in government institutions, in private sectors, in civil societies, in all, so the young people can take decisions. When you look for our member of parliament who are in charge of the youth, these are the young people who have 23, 25. You see? So our government, I just want to share our experience, which will help other African countries and the governments and the presidents. If we bring our strengths together and we build these young people to be in decision making, this will help us the next generation to be strong economically, politically, socially, mentally, physically, so that it will be very easy. Secondly, if we invest in these young people of the age of 25, I believe from now to 2063, these people will be having at the age of 68. So these are the people who will help to take the continent to another level. And these are the people who can rise the standard. I really want to mention about rising the standard. Young people need to rise the standard, because if you raise the standard, you don't want to fail. So African young people, African next generation need to raise the standard so that they can fight and be competitive to being accountable. African, if we don't want young people to be accountable, that would be a very problem. And keeping time. I like the way you started this meeting at exactly one, as you said, we started the meeting. African, we still have this kind of historical background which don't affect, when you say, hey, can we meet at 1? You find someone is going to come at around 2 or 3. Then I want to these young people of the age of 25 and above, or those who have the age down, they need to learn how they can keep time, being competitive to the international market, the international stage. And secondly, they need to be very visionary. Visionary is very important, you know. Africa want, it's not a slogan just saying that we need Africa, we want Africa, we do what? It's not a slogan. We have to being visionary for it. You know, we have taken this decision to invite us so that we can have a discussion on this. It's just a vision. If you don't have a vision, we should not be in touch with this. That's why I want to appreciate you so much for what you're doing. Secondly, someone asked me about the discipline. Young people at the age of 25, if we don't have to build on the discipline is the key for each and everything. You find people are going eating the corruption, people are killing each other, people are fighting. But if you have discipline, we need to establish and building our young people in the discipline way, so that it will help our continent to go through. So promoting African products made in Africa, young people need to be innovative. When you go to Germany, you know, TVT, you know, these people, they just go, you know, look, African, we are looking to get PhDs, we are looking to get, but other people, they are in the skills. I mentioned about China, I mentioned about Singapore, I mentioned about Dubai. You know, young people at the age of 20, we need to build on the skills. So I don't know if I tried to answer my question well, but we need to emphasize, we need to build these people. So the government, if young people, we are united, it will help us to influence the institutions and the governments, you know, because we'll share what we have in Rwanda, and you share what you have in Ghana, what you have in UK, what you have in Morocco, what you have in Nigeria. Then we'll bring together the resolutions, and the resolution will submit to the African Union. African Union have to take decisions on this. That's why I mentioned Pan-African spirit need to go to the grassroots. So if the student, even in the primary, the secondary, and the university, if they love the continent and love their products, and they, you know, when people buy the t-shirt of Nike, they feel proud. But why don't you buy a shirt or maybe a trouser from Ghana, or maybe from Morocco, or maybe from, you know, Cameroon? But you find everyone will be happy because of Nike, because of Adidas, because of what? So we need to love what we have in Africa. So let's be united as young people. Let's love each other. Let's be cooperative. Let's be focused. Let's have a vision. Let's have a discipline. Let's have a mindset. We change the mindset. And these people are saying, you know, when we are talking about this, someone told me, you saw Kwame Nkrumah, you see Nyerere, you see Gaddafi. These people died. You people, you want to die. So you see, people, they want to change their mind, you know. So we need to change our mind. We believe that our generation can change this thing. We don't care what our elders they have done. They did what they are supposed to do. But now, bring what you have. I bring what I have. We build our continent. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Michael. I really enjoyed your comments about the importance of having a true narrative, a true pride and love for who we are and what we do on the continent in order for the youth to make the best of the opportunities on the continent. Thank you so much. Next on our panel, Mr. Vaughn, I cannot wait to hear more about you. I have a questions. So, in your view, are our leaders exhibiting the right leadership to ensure that Africa can free itself from post-colonial ties and thus become more competitive internationally? And second, regarding our bilateral and multilateral relationships with non-African nations, are we ensuring a win-win situation, or are we at the losing end of these partnerships? These are very complex questions, so please take your time, and we are looking forward to hear your answers. Thank you so much. Mr. Vaughn, are you here? Oh, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Whether we are making progress internationally or we are at a losing end, I want to say that there are some countries that are making progress and there are some countries who are still stuck in post-colonial, within our colonial era, or we say post-colonial era. And when you look at the configuration of power in Africa and you look at the way it's in faction, you can say that there are some countries making progress, right? And there are some countries, if you look at it, they are still stuck in that mindset, or they are still stuck in that belief. And not only the leaders, even our people, the masses of our people, some of them are still majority, or some of them are still stuck in that belief. So everything boils down around consciousness building. When the people are conscious and they are united, they can forge anything, they can move anything forward. So when we talk about consciousness building, we must talk about it in depth, in a sense that our people must know and understand who our friends are, who our enemies are, and you know that people will say we should forget about history, we should abandon history. No, we cannot abandon history. You cannot abandon history, because you know that we say in our African proverb, the meat can forget, the animals can forget, but the tribe cannot forget. So the colonial guys, they know what they did yesterday. They have on their books. They have their plan for the next 100 years. What are our plans? We must go back to know who our friends are, who our enemies are, and who are the neutral guys, right? So if we know who were our friends yesterday, when you had nothing, it's like a man who will come to you and say, "Oh yeah, who are your friends yesterday?" And you say, "Oh, I don't have time for friendship yesterday. As long as everything is good with me today." No. Africa in totality, like the African Union, must be able to tighten her grip. The African Union must be able to take some positions, irrespective of the consequence. And there is no way, I say to you, and I would say in the challenge, there is no way we can have Africa on the international stage if Africans themselves doesn't stand for something. There is no way we can advance and move Africa forward if we are not willing to pay the price of moving Africa forward. There is no way Africa is going to move forward just on silver platter, all right? And there's no nation in the world, whether the United States of America, whether Europe, whether Asia, whether Russia, or wherever it is, have all grew up the bubbles of struggle and sweat. But if our continent as Africans on the international stage, right, you want people to have you respected, you want the international community to have you respected. Like we talk about AIDS, we have to reduce the dependency syndrome. Before you talk about reducing the dependency syndrome, you must look at key strategic areas. What are key strategic areas? You talk about education and human resource development, or education and capacity building, right? Whether vocational education or the formal education, we must be able to dive in sufficient consciousness building, and we must continue to dive in human resource development. If that is settled and if that is achievable, I can tell you that, like I said, if people conscious and united can make progress. Then you talk about what? Look, forget about where the United States invite us, right? Whether the Russian African Summit, the Asian African Summit, the the European African Summit, you can go there, right? And you'll be able to see what is in the interest, what is in the interest, and what is in your interest. So directly we talk about, let's go to them one by one. We talk about China, right? Recently we have seen the African-China interest, the African-China strategic partnership. We have seen and we have witnessed, some of us as young leaders, we have witnessed every attempt to undermine it by the very West. We have seen every attempt to have it undermined. So should we, like China will come to you on a win-win situation and say, look, this is what we have Africans. This is what we can do for you. What can you do for us? Like, when we talk about win-win, what can you do for us? You tell China what you can do for them realistically, and China tells you what they can do for you realistically, and you all can balance. You all can globally balance with each other, because the world needs everybody. Africa needs Europe, Europe needs Asia, and Asia needs America and everything. So Africa as a continent, the European Summit, you go there and you talk to them. They come to you, yeah, this is what we can do for you. And this is what we can do for the continent to benefit, not for an individual to benefit, not for a president to benefit. But how does it trickle down? How does it trickle down effects go to the masses of the people, to take the people out of massive poverty, and for these partners to see you as being more respected? Many of the time, like one of the speakers said, COVID-19 has given us a very strategic lesson. The entire African continent, majority of us, we don't believe in our health system. We don't believe in our education system. So everybody used to run to the West. When a leader gets sick, they run to the West for treatment. When a person gets sick, they run to the West, they run to the other country for treatment. And COVID-19 is educating us that these are the same people that are suffering from, they are being mostly affected by COVID-19. Up to now, the struggle is still on to have a vaccine or medication for COVID-19. So what message does that speak to us as Africans and our leaders? It's only trying to tell us, look, no man is infallible. We have something strategic and we have something excellent that we can tap into to strengthen ourselves, that even the people on the other side can come to us for us to help. Because like we talk about globalization, right? We must be able to help each other. What can Africa offer on the international stage? So if you start to offer something on the international stage, internationally you are going to be respected, right? Until African leaders themselves can come together. Look, every one of us watching our eyes, the bombing of Libya, the destruction of Libya. What was the position of the African Union? What did we do? Many African leaders knew it was wrong. None of them said first. But they could only cry in their bare rooms. They could only come out to cry in the faces of their colonial masters to take a position to say, look, this is why it's right, and this is why we feel, and this is why it's going to affect Africa. Who is benefiting from all of the resources in Libya today? Is it Africans or Europeans or Americans? So until we can know, like, how to do liberate Angola, how to do liberate Zimbabwe, how to do liberate Congo, how to do liberate Namibia, how to we partially liberate South Africa, because South Africa is just partially liberated. How to we partially liberate South Africa, right? So until we understand these things and understand where we came from, we will only understand where we are going, and we can take a common position to affect the interests of the African continent. That's why we talk about education and human resource, the economy and empowerment, the economy and human empowerment, agriculture and food security, governance and leadership. Many times people have condemned Africa, right? But it is a fact that Africa has put up some of the most potential leaders on the continent of Africa. Africa, yes, we have had some foolish leaders, but we have some Western puppet leaders. But Africa is a fact that Africa has put up some of the most potential leaders on the continent of Africa. It is a fact that we have had some of the most potential leaders on the continent of Africa. Yes, we have had some of those potential leaders. Who undermine some of them? Who destroy some of them? We have read about the report of the overthrow of Kwame Nkrumah. And in history, in fact, today we tell you that it was the CIA who undermined Kwame Nkrumah. All right? Who undermined Agostinho Neto, Samri Michel. Right? Who were supporting the very apartheid in South Africa yesterday to keep us in the colonial bloc, to keep us under the boot of colonialism. Who were those sponsoring them yesterday? Who are those sponsoring some of them today? Who were those that destroy some of our most potential leaders in Africa? Every time I read a story and watch a picture of the former leader of Congo, right? The former leader of Congo. Every time I see how he was overthrown, how he was brutally treated, it brings sorrow to my mind. People who, when you read their speeches, they talk about how Africa should move forward. The moment you talk about the advances of Africa and Pan-Africanism, you are already in trouble internationally. So today, even in Liberia, even around the world, many young people are afraid. Many of them will tell you, oh, comrade, you can't be talking this internationally. These people will go against you. It's not good for you. Let's keep quiet, look for your money, and save yourself. Yes, that has been advice from many young people, even in Africa. But there are some young people who are standing up on the continent of Africa. Like we said, the All African Students Union is the vanguard of the youth and student movement in Africa, who have been championing the causes of Africa both yesterday and today. So today, this topic, like I'm saying, places us on the map of seeking a way forward and enlightening and broadening the mind of our young people as to how we move forward. So in that regard, I want to conclude by saying to you that, yes, there will be a whole lot of summit, what are the Asian African summit, we can go there, but what are our interests? Self-esteem, Pan-Africanism at the grassroots level, at the indigenous level. How can you tell me that someone will, how can you tell me that someone will impose a value and right on us as being human rights? How can the United States, Europeans tell us in Africa that their culture and value is human rights? Then they come and tell us that our culture and value is primitive, is wrong, is condemning, it's not good, our ancestors were foolish and stupid yesterday. Yes, there are some wrong decisions in the past, but how can we override it? But yes, there were some good decisions in the past yesterday, and who were those who undermined it? So to look up of our friends today, to make our friends today in good time, we must look for who were our friends in bad times, who were our friends in hard times, who were our friends in difficult times. That's the only way Africa can be respected on the international stage. That's the only way Africa can be able to win something in the international stage. And today, like I said, yeah, there are some countries that are winning. We talk about Rwanda, and one strategic case I want to talk about. Look at Zimbabwe. When Zimbabwe and ZANU-PF attempted to reclaim the land from colonial rule, to reclaim the land and give back to Africans, the very United States and European, they censored Zimbabwe and instructed some of the African puppets to go against Zimbabwe. There were some African nations that were isolating Zimbabwe, kept Zimbabwe. People talk about poverty. I dare you, remove the censure from Zimbabwe. You will see the mightiness of the African people. Remove the censure, partially from some African countries, and you will see the mightiness, the decency, and the excellent brainwork of some decent African people. Yes, there are some decent African people, so irresponsible African people. There's no country that controls us in the world. There's no country that does everything on the eye. So basically, I want to say that yes, some of our leaders are winning, African winning in some area, and there are some areas we are not making progress. We are looking at the small picture, we are looking at some of the big picture. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vaughn Ujazi, for this very passionate and insightful answer. I do agree with you that there is a need for greater consciousness building and for us to define our own interests as a continent. Now we're going to move on to the outstanding Dr. Samuel Salya from the University of de Montfort University, with the following questions. So, in your view, what specific initiatives, activities, and policies can be put in place to enable the continent to be more competitive on the international stage? And in your answer, could you please also tell us which stakeholders should be engaged and what should be their roles, if possible? Thank you so much. Over to you.
Yeah, Carolee, thank you for the kind words. And also, I have to say that my brother Vene is a very passionate young man with a lot of fire in his voice, and rightly so. He made very important suggestions, and one was to how do we identify our areas of strategic strength? So in that context, I would just want to continue from there to see how I can unpack your questions. Now, the question I've always asked, and of course I've raised this on other African platforms, is where is our area of competitive strength? That is what we want to look at because we want to compete in the world, on the world stage. And often I have agreed with others that our area of competitive strength is agriculture. If you come across Africa, again, you want to look at the arable land in Africa. Africa has 60% of the world's arable land. Then again, Africa has the youngest population. These are ingredients that are right for us to use to sort of improve our agriculture. Now, as it stands now, if you look at the trends, if we have 60% of the world's arable land, yet if you look at our exports of agricultural goods, is about $1. Every $1, the corresponding imports we make is about $2 in agricultural food. So we import twice what we export. So I'm just going to make some few suggestions as to how we can improve this area of agriculture. Now, you realize that the most dominant structure within our agricultural setting is smallholder farming. Now, we cannot fully just move straight away from smallholder farming to commercial farming, but that is the next thing we have to look at. We have to dedicate specific areas for agricultural activities. And what we want to do is to have agricultural enclaves. And these agricultural enclaves have to focus on the commodities that we are producing. Now, within these agricultural enclaves, what you want to do is to create some infrastructure that would support these agricultural enclaves. Now, the infrastructure could be facilities that would create retention of water. You also need roads where these commodities, when produced, can be transported. You also need electricity, and you also need a transfer of agricultural technology into these areas. You need extension. But the idea of creating agricultural areas is this. To begin with, we have commercial agricultural farms alongside smallholder farms. And what we tend to or intend to achieve with this form of structure is for us to see a trade of expertise, where the commercial farms would trade expertise with the smallholder farmers and the other way around. So that is the first point I want to make. Is very important that we focus on it. And sometimes when I make this point of agriculture, I get criticized for the fact that I'm saying Africa should focus all its resources into agriculture, leaving the other sectors such as tourism and so on. No, that is not what I'm saying. But the point I want to make here is that if our area of competitive advantage is agriculture, why should we not focus there, but rather try to focus on manufacturing of cars where we do not have competitive advantage? So that is very important, and that point must be understood in the right context. Now, we cannot keep exporting commodities. I always say commodities are price takers. They are not price givers. We have to go into agricultural processing. Now, again, my argument is not for us to set up multinational agricultural processing plants. We do not currently have the resources to do that. What we can do is to set up very small plants. Now, you go to the farming areas that we have created, and what you want to do is, what commodities are they producing within that particular area? You mobilize the community together and set up small plants that are within their capacity to operate and train them to operate these plants. Now, the commodities that we produce on the farms would go into these agro-processing firms, and that is where we begin to what? We begin to add value. Now, when we add value, what that means is that we are increasing the level of profit that we are making, but also we are increasing the skills within our local communities. And this requires a lot of local economic development to drive. The local, in Africa, generally you go and see, and every policy action, every financial or mobilization has to come from the federal government. It shouldn't be the case. We should be able to empower our local authorities to make these initiatives. The young people should be able to engage. And I remember that was what student leadership was about. Student leaders would get up, gather these understandings and put them into policy and propose to government and propose to institutions that have the capacity or the strength to allow some of these actions to take place. That is what we have to be looking at, that the young people, policymakers, we all have to begin to assemble and take the initiative where we begin to say, look, within our local community, this is the proposal we have for the local authority. Let's create farm areas and participate in agriculture by themselves. Then also we have to move it forward into agro businesses. You have to be able to have knowledge of the what? Of the value chain. You realize that even though we are beginning to export a lot of commodities into the international market, but the main traders within the value chain are not African businesses. We have to resource ourselves to have an understanding of this value chain so that we do not only participate at the downstream, but we participate at the upstream as well. So if we gather this understanding and begin to implement this action within the value chain as traders, when we produce our commodities and convert them into products, we would have had knowledge of the upper stream. That way we would be able to really enforce and take place on the world stage. And in that context, what we tend to do is that we are not coming to the international market as commodity that we come to take prizes, but we come with products that we will be giving prizes. So that is one important area that I think we should be looking at. And I've always said that, look, the next set of millionaires from Africa are going to be from agriculture. Of course, IT is one, but I believe I'm more of a farmer than I am an educationist. So that is the interest I would always share with young people. But one important thing I have to make here is this, in terms of leadership for young people, and it's very dear to my heart, because Africa, leadership is no small business, it's no joke. For you to be a leader, you have to prove yourself to be a leader. I remember sometimes I used to talk to very elderly people, and they would say, look, those days we come back from school, we go into community mobilization. Then when there is a role for leadership, the elders within the community calls us and say, you have the potential, go and represent us. Today, what do we see? We see young people insulting their way up into political leadership. The more you can insult, the better it is for you to get appointed as a minister. I don't think it should be going that way. We should test ourselves at the community level, take into consideration community mobilization, and that would prepare us so that we will be able to get into the international space with ideas and to provide solutions.
Thank you so much, Samuel. I think throughout your intervention, I really enjoyed the point about, the weakness of commodity trading and the need for agricultural enclaves and ethical leaderships among youth, and the benefits that community mobilization could bring. Thank you very much. And finally, we will have the pleasure to meet Mr. Peter Josepha Nimboye. We couldn't hear you earlier on, and I truly apologize for this. Are you now able to introduce yourself? Oh, Mr. Peter Josepha Nimboye, are you here? Okay, I think there must be an issue on the line. He is not connected anymore. So we will move on to quickly just one or two questions, because unfortunately we're running out of time. And there are a couple of questions that have arisen, and there is one in particular that has caught my attention. So I guess Mrs. Karima, this one perhaps is for you. Just 1 second here. Yes. How are we as African people can be able to contribute to the economy in a more effective way? What are the keys and the key tools and instrument that we can use to participate in a more effective way and contribute to our economy? Over to you. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I think I saw also a couple of questions. There was another one that was addressed to me regarding the balance between investing in infrastructure and people. So I'll try to answer both because that goes together. So in my opinion, if I'm taking into consideration how are we going to be competitive, I think some of the key ideas was in previous speakers, with previous speakers, but I'm going to highlight one important things about employability of young people today within the context of COVID-19 and also in post-COVID-19, as with the projections of artificial intelligence, there will be millions of people around the world in the coming.
I apologize, Mrs. Karima. I think we lost you just a second. Oh, here.
I think my mic
Yes.
was not, yeah, okay.
Yes, my apologies. I think there was a little technical issues. Go for it. Thank you very much.
So to answer these questions, I think if we're talking about how are we going to be competitive, the one thing come to my mind is with the COVID-19 and post-COVID-19, there are many projections stating that millions of people around the world, more specifically young people, will be losing their jobs because of artificial intelligence. That makes me think about to what extent we are working as policymakers to reform the education system to make young people more employable, to adapt to the new challenges and transformation in the job market. That is for one. Second is that some countries started being like a hub for certain sectors, economic sectors. We can give an example of innovation, technology, manufacturing cars, and offshoring and other types of important economic sectors that make countries of the African continent more attractive. And if we link it to international relations and win-win partnership, I think economy or economic interests are usually determining the political and geopolitical interests of countries in Africa. So building and investing in those sectors and trying to move from our traditional way of, contributing to the GDP, moving from countries that are dependent more specifically on consumption to be countries who are actually producing. And another thing is that with the free trade agreement, the recent one, the continental one, I think it's high time, first of all, to evaluate or do a study of consumer behavior, as it came in one of the discussions before. We're proud to wear Nikes, but we're not proud to wear something African. So I think it's high time to develop value chains of local products and boost our local products to boost intra-regional trade between African countries, make them more attractive to African countries. So instead of me, doing commerce or e-commerce with a foreign country, I would better encourage another African country and buy from Ghana and buy from Nigeria instead of buying from Europe or others. So how can we make these more attractive for African countries first, and then be ready for export. As to export and import, we saw in the context of COVID-19 that, of course, some of the countries focused more on trying to make local production. For example, if I can give the example of Morocco, we worked on having our local productions of masks. At a certain time, there was like a global fight about, sanitary products and masks. So we decided to produce locally and, work with industries and you to innovate and produce a mask for local market. Make satisfy the local market, then export to other countries. So I think our way of thinking and mindset should shift in this. Another thing I think for this is now I think it's high time to create knowledge workers. we're in the age of digitalization. It's a fact. We are the age of artificial intelligence. And there was another a question talking about balancing between infrastructure and investing people. And I wanted to give a concrete example. We built, for example, as a center hub, a digital center hub. We have computers, but we don't have humans. We don't build the capacity of the humans who are going to manage programs and train people using these computers and these mobile applications and so on. So we cannot just keep focusing on building a lot of infrastructure and creating a lot of platforms without building the capacity of the people who are going to, make a balance, and contribute to make these platforms operational. So I think investing in human capital is important. Building, new generation of knowledge workers who will be competing in the market. Changing the mindset of younger generation to be the CEOs of their lives, not focusing too much on having a normal job. Because there are a lot of alternatives to the economy. We need just to open their mindset, identify new business models, new ecosystem, and coach them so that they can be more competitive in the global market. So I think these are some of the things that are quite important. And the last point is diversification of economic partners. Before, we used to deal with a lot with traditional partners, working in the same thing with the same approach, same products, to the extent that we had an influence of many economic lobbyists of the same traditional partners. But I think today we have a lot of emerging economic blocks that create more potential for the African continent to partner with and create alternatives to the economy and to the job market.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Karima. I really love the point about youth needing to have the courage to become, the CEO of their lives. I think that also is something that I could take from me. And I think we are going to go through a very last question. And please, let's try to make this answer very quick. So, Mr. Shaka, this one is for you. It's about issues of nationalism and communitarism. So how can youth communities today, broke down the weaknesses or the toxicity around nationalism that truly is hampering our ability to unite, especially in places where ethnical conflict are still very much present? How can the youth hamper those dynamics in the future? Over to you. I think you need to unmute your mic once more. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Can you share with me some of the countries which is, of course, the community is what you said and the nationalism and what, but can you give me an example of some of the countries so that it can help me to answer your question in the right way?
Of course. So let's take the example of, for instance, Burkina Faso. At the moment, things have been very tensed between northern and southern communities. It is, of course, not representative of the whole continent, but it's an example that demonstrates that in some countries on the continent, issues of identity are still very much a problem. Does it make sense?
Yes, it clearly makes sense. Actually, this issue of the nationalism and of course the community and these things needs to. Actually, I was thinking about it. If you don't love your country, if you don't love your citizen, if you don't love your neighbors, if you don't love your friends, your colleague, your workmate, the people you share, the people you hang on, and you don't love them, that will be a very big problem. So the issue of nationalism and of course the communalism, that really needs, first of all, I loved the point that my colleague have been really discussing on this. We need to learn something good for the people who really manage to be good, or the people who really manage to overcome maybe the issue of nationalism or maybe the communities, and we set an example, more especially for the young people, as what you say. We need to have an example which is really very good for nationalism in African countries. So I'm giving an example, like here in Rwanda. I'm very sorry to give you an example of what the young people at the age of 15, 20, 22, 25, these are young people who are already on the roads on this period of COVID-19, helping people to wash their hands, standing on the bus stands, standing everywhere to helping people. They have already created something for the sake of nationality, for the sake of the country. They say, hey, we have to go on the roads, we have to go in the markets, we have to go to the hospital. We help our people so that these people can keep distance. If they don't keep distance, these people will die. If they die, then our country, the economy, if people die, then of course the economy have to go down. They just settled that, and it's really works. When you look for our young people, the doctors, they have already have settled somewhere as the Minister of Health. They are bringing all the doctors to come together and set somewhere that really these people will help those who really suffering COVID-19. So young people need to love their country. We need to love our country. Secondly, we believe there must be some issues which is not going well in the government, in the leadership. But as young people, if we start blaming each other, we are not going to do this generation different to make it truly competitive.
Mr. Shaka, are you here? I think we've lost you. Let's wait a couple of seconds, see if we can get back to Michael. Okay, well, unfortunately, I think that we will have to wrap up at this time. I'd like to conclude this webinar by thanking all the panelists that were with us today. It was an absolute delight. Mr. Shaka, are you here? Michael?
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, you're back. Oh. Great.
Oh,
I think we were about to wrap up, but please go ahead by concluding your answer. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much. So I was saying that young people, we need to have, as what you said, mindset, but we need to have a positive mind. Positive mind, we learn from other young people what they did good. For you people now, I'm learning something that we as Rwanda, we have to organize a webinar conference and invite you so that also you can speak to us, So young people, we need to learn something, but basically on loving our country, loving our communities, loving our neighbors. Think about how we can open borders. Why do we have these borders? This is a colonial thing they brought in 1960s and bringing borders, but we should share. I've been in Europe and I traveled almost 15 countries in Europe, but there is no border. When you go to Germany, you go to Switzerland, you go to Paris, you go to Norway, you go to Sweden, you go to Netherlands, there is no border. But here in Africa, there is border. These people bring a lot of issues that really brings to the border. So young people, we have to know this is our task. bringing the blocks of the borders so that we can gain on the business and agriculture. As Dr. Watt said, Dr. Samuel, the agriculture, what we have in Africa, I believe we can do export and import for the worldwide. But young people, it's our task to remove these borders or barriers and do business closely. I do business in Nigeria, I do business in Senegal, I do business in Morocco, I do business in Ghana, I do business in South Africa, everywhere. When there is no border, we use one passport. This is our task. That's why I say, let's have a common understanding. Let's have one vision. Let's have one common vision and say we fight for our country and our continent. But the problem we have, our young people, they are just going, on the sea, going in Europe, going to America. Why? You can go there, but go and study, then come back and invest in your country. So briefly, I want to wrap up and say that the Africa, once again, it's on our hands. Let's join our hands together. Let's build the potential we have from you and what I have. We bring it together and experience. Look, in Africa, the climate, I was looking the way how we can compete to the international market all level. These people, they're coming to Africa for tourism. The summertime and the winter time, it's a big problem to Europe, to America, to Japan. I was in Japan. But when you go to Japan, when you look to the weather, it's a problem. But Africa, we have a normal condition and a normal weather. This will help us, to overcome is to agriculture here. We do our agriculture, we do coffee, we do what? And again, the tourism, we promote tourism. When you look to Dubai, tourism contributed a lot to Dubai. I was in Dubai last year, I was in Singapore. Singapore, it's a small, very thin. Rwanda is a small country, but in Singapore, it's very small. It's like our city, Kigali. But how Singapore grew up, it's all about invested in tourism. So young people, let's change our mind. Let's be focused. Let's see that everything is on our hands, but we build the unit. They build everything that really can take us to another level. So what can this generation do differently to make Africa truly competitive in the international stage? We have already started this. Let's keep in touch, organizing the conferences and the seminars, the meetings. We discuss on it. We get contacts. We believe our continent in the next 40 years, 50 years, 30 years, 20 years, 100 years will be great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Michael. It was great to have you back. We were a little scared for a second. Well, again, I would like to restate the delight that we all had to hear from your knowledge and wisdom. Michael, Karima, Mr. Vaughn, New Jersey, and Mr. Peter Josepha, who unfortunately was not able to join us throughout the whole webinar. And finally, Dr. Samuel Salya, thank you so very much. I think that for us as young people, it's always very good to hear from older, people who have already had this experience in life and who can guide us and let us know what mistakes need to be avoided and where things need to be changed. I'd like to state as well that this webinar will be transformed into reports, and it will give the audience an opportunity to truly remember the main objectives and focus and lessons that we've learned throughout this webinar. So stay tuned on the All Africa Students Union website, and we'll make sure to update you with some beautiful and wonderful content from this webinar. Again, thank you for all our audience. We had fantastic questions that should be included in the report and answered. And have an excellent week and weekend, actually. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you
Bye.
for having us. Thank you.
Bye-bye. I really love to get your contact. You're good. I really enjoy it.
Great. Great.
Thank you very much. It was a fascinating discussion, and we hope for most of these discussions to come up and for us to make our point. So thank you for moderating. You moderated very excellently.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure. I do apologize for having to cut you through at the beginning. I was trying to be mindful of time.
That's the work of moderators.
Fantastic. Well, I'll be more than